The novel Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad is written in a very peculiar way. Conrad uses a framing structure which makes up a story in a story. The story is recounted by two narrators, which makes it sound more verisimilar and impressive. The novel opens up with the description of the people on a boat, among which we find the second narrator Marlowe. Marlowe can be called the main narrator for he tells the story of his adventures in Congo, one of the dark places of the earth. But the first anonymous narrator makes us feel as if we were on a board as well. Using the first-person singular, Conrad makes us a part of the group of listeners. This unknown narrator reveals the enigmatic atmosphere of that night, which makes the reader the hostage of the predominating mood of mystery. In few moments the reader finds himself in the darkness, in front of the storyteller Marlowe. Being a seaman makes Marlowe reliable and unreliable at the same time. On the one hand, he really experienced a lot of things, he saw so many different places and met numerous interesting people. But, on the other, like all wanderers and seamen, he could have that characteristic feature to add some details, which could be not quite realistic. Even the first narrator is not sure in Marlowe's truthfulness, pointing out that the listeners had to hear about one of Marlowe's inconclusive experiences. But still, the way Marlowe recounts his story makes it realistic. The narration is very interesting, for the storyteller always addresses to his listeners, thus, the reader is involved in a kind of conversation, where appears the illusion of possibility to put some questions to the narrator. It is also worth mentioning that the story, told by the person who went it through, is very personal. Marlowe not only tells his story, he expresses his attitude toward those events or people. For example, the reader can feel Marlowe's negative feelings about the hunt for ivory. You would think they were praying to it. A taint of imbecile rapacity blew through it all, like a whiff from some corpse. His words are very emotional, depicting the cruelty of white people, so the reader does not only get to know about the ivory hunting, the reader is affected by the negative connotation of Marlowe's words and subconsciously starts forming his negative attitude as well. Of course, experienced reader will not surely be affected, but he or she will understand Marlowe's point of view. Anyway, being very emotional, Marlowe's story reveals the main idea of the novel, the darkness of human soul. And it is very remarkable that the reason of storytelling is Marlowe's, a kind of déjà vu. The trip in the darkness evoked in him thoughts about the Romans who came to civilize ancient British Isles, and his Congolese trip, when they, civilized, came into uncivilized, wild land. Marlowe is a very valuable narrator, in terms of his recounting style, where the meaning of an episode was not inside like a kernel but outside, enveloping the tale, which brought it out only as a glow brings out a haze. Thus, we can understand that the whole story is just an illustration of his main idea. The whole story and Kurtz in particular are introduced by Marlowe in order to express his thought about the darkness of people's heart and, as one of its manifestation, pathological eagerness to interfere into others' life, civilizing uncivilized lands. Describing all those events in details, Marlowe opens the envelope to reveal the main issue of his concerns. Marlowe condemns humans' greediness and violence. He points out that each person will realize the horror of all his awful deeds, like Kurtz, whose last words were horror. Horror! Marlowe underlines that even if a person does not meet the consequence during his life, those terrible things he has done will come anyway and bring death and poison the last minutes of life. And another question which is introduced by Marlowe is whether it is possible to conceal the dark truth. He decides that sometimes it is possible to spare one's feeling and hide the darkness, but the question still remains without the answer, for he is not certain about it. So, the reader is to find these answers for himself. At this point it is necessary to return to the first narrator. As it is mentioned above, the unknown narrator puts the reader into that significant mysterious darkness, where the storyteller's voice only appears. This atmosphere makes the reader mix time and place, whether the reader is on a boat on the Thames or on steamboat somewhere in Congo. Maybe the reader is one of the Marlowe's listeners, or maybe the reader is Marlowe's inner voice, talking to Marlowe. Some passages from Marlowe's story are very similar to Confession. What I really wanted was rivets, by heaven. Rivets. to get on with the work, to stop the whole. But then the narration stops, and the reader is again listening to the unknown narrator, who describes Marlowe speaking, making pauses. The importance of the anonymous narrator cannot be underestimated, since apart from depicting the necessary atmosphere, this person abrupts the narration and awakens the reader from the Marlowe's tale. These swings from listening to a story in a story and inner thoughts enhances the effect of the reading. Thus, two narrators of the novel depict the eternal problem of the darkness of human soul. One of them, Marlowe, shares his own experience and personal attitude toward this, illustrating his ideas with bright events and characters. The other, unknown narrator, reinforces the effect of Marlowe's story by creating the atmosphere of darkness and uncertainty. Being a personal story told by Marlowe, it is very emotional, but being retold by the anonymous narrator, the story makes the reader stand aside. All this makes the reader regard the novel as a realistic tale, which puts complicated questions, leaving their solving to the reader. Of course, the reader can see the Conrad's attitude toward the issues considered in the novel, but still there are more questions than answers. And these two narrators make readers look deeper into their own hearts and try to find and defeat the darkness which is inherent in humans. Actually, this darkness makes people civilized, and thus people should get rid of such kind of civilization. Everything you need for studies, essay samples, writing tools, and tips, you can find at studycorgi.com.